everyone, and welcome back to the second installment of the ER podcast. I'm your host, Evan Lee. This is my co-host, Rachel Alexander, and we have a new charming face with us today. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Nice to meet you guys. My name is Patrick, and I go to LHBC as well, part of the OEL group. So thanks for having me on, Evan.
Yeah.
Does ER just stand for Evan Rachel, or does it have
Well, the premise of the show is basically that we are presenting the most urgent issues of the time.
Oh, so like that. You got it. Oh,
Yeah.
that's kind of genius. Okay.
Yeah, you'll see when we cut to the outro, but it's also a play on our initials because I'm Rachel, so
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But before we get into the meat of the topics today, I have a bit of an introductory question for us. The question is, how much money would it take for you to painlessly amputate the right leg?
How much money?
Painlessly.
Yeah, so you don't feel any pain, you're just kind of like pop, bruise.
How much money would it take? You know, for me, like I want to be able to play sports.
Oh.
It really will take a lot of money for me to lose a leg.
Okay. Set like a line, like 1 mil, 10 mil?
If I can comfortably retire without worrying about my finances, I think I'm good.
Really?
Yeah. But then, like, you do take a huge joy away from me. So I feel like it might be immeasurable. I might not pay. I might not. Yeah.
$1 billion.
Oh, $1 billion. Oh, I might think about it too. Yeah, I don't even work, you know.
You can save your children and your children's children.
Yeah. No, I'm guaranteed. But then, like, I could play sports for the rest of my life. That's a little sad. So.
Well, no, I was thinking logistically. I was like, how much money in like medicine do I need to not feel the procedure?
Oh,
That's why I have to
Just physically pay medicine. I don't know. I would think like similar to you of like it would have to be $1 billion or
$1 billion.
something like crazy.
Okay, what about like 500?
Oh, I thought you just said 500. I was like, no.
No, 500 mil. 500 mil. 500 mil. It's still quite a hefty sum.
Yeah, you know, I don't know, man. It's hard to quantify. It depends on how old I am. If I'm 60, then I'm sure take my
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, if I'm 60, take my leg. But if I'm 20,
I'm not using it.
if I'm 20, don't take my leg. I need my leg.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what if you like reframe the question? It's the same question, but it's like, imagine all the time you spend like working right now, and then that time you could spend doing sort of ministry work. Sort of like going out to people, connecting with them more, doing discipleship, getting involved in church roles, stuff like that. Because you were just magically blessed with no harm to anybody else with like $500 million. You don't have to care about your finances. And then does that change your answer in any sort of way?
Well, I think the ministry work that you can do changes if you don't have a right leg. Because dominant permits.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
We have a good. Roll back.
No, I think definitely like if I don't have to work, then yeah, I know it does. Like maybe I'll actually go to seminary and pursue full-time ministry. If I don't have a leg and don't need to work, right?
Yeah.
My life will include.
How do you stand at the pulpit?
You know, you can get like you can get prosthetic legs. Like there's this guy called. Never mind. I don't know if you guys follow like the big baller family.
No, I
like the bar ball. No, he like amputated his legs and then he got like a fake leg and he's
Just survive.
No. He had an infection.
Oh, okay. And it shows one.
No. And then I guess like that's a way to like, kind of circumvent it for you. So like
Yeah. I had the same conversation a bit. I got a question from my roommate because somebody asked it to him. And we were talking about prosthetic legs too, because like they're expensive, but you're getting like as much money as you want from it. So I was thinking like, especially minor breaks, especially if you have all this extra time. I'm thinking about it as like a student, because like the only reason why I'm in school is sort of like I can get a job, or and like I am interested in the stuff that I do, but I wouldn't do it just out of interest. It takes too much time, you know. Then I think if I could just like magically in a moment make more money or resources than like 10 of my lifetimes could achieve, then I might go for a pretty low number in comparison to like $1 billion. Like, I would have to think about it like a lot. I think somewhere in the range is like 10.
okay.
Yeah, it's pretty low because I'm also not a sports guy. So I'm not like I like sports, but I won't die. Yeah. So to me, I'm very content with like sitting in a chair.
Awesome. That's fair. I'll check in with you after you hit adulthood. What's not you have to go around and do stuff.
That's right.
And you need convenience.
Yeah. One of the big things was about driving. That's why I said.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's true.
Yeah. So you have to take transit, where you have to have a chauffeur, which I guess you could like hire for a million dollars. But that is a consideration. So, interesting question. Moving on to our first big topic of the day is talking about modesty, and I wanted to first define our terms, right? So, what does it mean to an actor or dress in modesty? You don't have to give like a dictionary definition, but what do you characterize?
Yeah, I think in my head, first thing that comes to mind is just not drawing attention to yourself. Like there's a sense of humility when it comes to modesty, right? Because obviously clothing being a huge part of modest, like that's what people think of when you talk about modesty, or at least I think about, right? And so a lot of people dress really flashy, right? Just to bring attention to themselves, like look at how amazing I am, right? But then modesty, I think the Bible talks a lot about, being humble. And for the women part, right, talking about like it's not, beauty is not in the adornment, but in the humble heart, right? So yeah, I think that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say like both an attitude and the way that you like physically present yourself. That is drawing attention to God rather than to you.
Okay. So is that sort of universal? Like, is there any differentiation that we have to make here? Because there's a lot of like different outfits that would attract people's attention, but it's not necessarily, I don't know, you could say intentional. Like somebody that just wears like they're Japanese and they wear like traditional Japanese clothing, but it's like really like long, like unnecessarily long, and it kind of looks like they're always wearing a dress or something like that. I don't know what traditional Japanese clothes is. But it's like, for that it's like very normal clothing because that's like what they're used to, but to other people it's very different, and so they're like drawing attention. Would you consider them immoderate in that sense?
I've heard this said before about dress, like clothing. It's and speech too. It depends on the culture that you're in, and for all of us who are living in a certain culture, right? We're very aware of what is of acceptable, like generally accepted by society, right? Like what something will be perceived as. So like let's run with your example, right? For someone who's Japanese and they wear like kimono, right? But they don't live around here. Their community isn't here, and they just here visit, and they don't know, right?
Yeah.
To me, that's fine because it's not their context. But if you grew up in Seattle, right, and then is like, well, I'm gonna wear that every single day, knowing that people are gonna be like, oh, this is kind of weird, then that's a whole different story, right? Because you're knowingly doing something to stay out. Not saying that that's wrong, because it always goes back to the heart, right? What is your intention of doing that? Like if your intention is to honor, I don't know, trying to think off the top of my head, you're trying to honor somebody, like let's say your Degre follows Japanese, you're trying to honor him, right? And you could say like, if your heart posture is to honor someone, then it's a self-glorify, right? That would be a lot more acceptable. But then if you're just wearing it to be like, oh, look at me because I'm so different, then yeah, I'd say that's border enough. You gotta check your heart a little bit.
Yeah, I think there is like an aspect of, we're called to let our considering spirit be made known to all men. So there is like, if I went to like Japan or something and everyone's wearing kimonos, I'm like, well, maybe I should go out in my shorts and t-shirts. Like, you look around and you're able to see that. But like, if if little 70-year-old grandpa doesn't get the memo, that's okay. Like, I think there is a certain graciousness that we could extend in that situation. And yeah, it is about the heart attitude. If you're not purposefully adorning yourself like that to have others look at you, but it's just, what you're used to culture.
Okay, so I'm hearing two things here. I'm back to like kind of trying to create definitions. So one is about like cultural norms, and also sort of a heart posture about like, it's not necessarily wrong to draw attention, but if it's like attention to yourself rather than for some other more meaningful purpose, I guess you could say, like, oh, you were a Japanese grandfather, then it's necessarily wrong to be immodest in that sense.
Right.
So it's about drawing attention to yourself specifically. And then there's also the aspect of cultural unawareness. It's like if you're like there's some grandpa who's like wandering around, kind of like wearing whatever label is comfortable, then you're not acting as immodestly? Question mark.
Yeah. Here, let me pose a question here. This is something that I've always thought about modesty is hype these brands. You guys have heard things like Supreme, Hawaii, hype these stuff. What are you guys' opinion on should Christians wear hype these ways?
Hypebeast. Oh my gosh. I've never heard it said like that.
And it was a term probably for my generation. You guys are too young. You're too young.
Yeah, so he hasn't said their name.
No, but for the at school and stuff, stuff like date, yeah, that stuff is super high, but it's like really expensive, right? And it's not even that expensive. Off-White was like 500 piece, right, for any shirt.
Yeah.
And so like in my head, I'm like I know Christians who like wear that kind of stuff, and I'm not gonna call people out, but
Yeah.
it's always been a question for me: is that biblical, and is that biblical for Christians?
Okay, I'll answer since I've been doing some questioning. Generally, my gut instinct tells me no. And the reason why is first I think of it from like a financial perspective. It's like the quality of the things isn't that great. Like how good can they make it? It's like a t-shirt. And just from a very objective standpoint, if you're trying to find something that serves the purpose of clothing, to cover yourself, like to keep yourself warm, everything else, and cover your nakedness, then you do not need to be spending $50 a pop on like a mask or like $150 on like a shirt. There are a lot of other options, and I think the only reason why you say that you're buying this thing for a specific purpose has to be because of some sort of prestige or something like that. Otherwise, you wouldn't buy it. I think if there's some person that, and this goes to a second point, if there's some person that was like gifted like a Louis Vuitton kind of or a Capri shirt, and they kind of just like wear it, and then they're kind of like, oh yeah, my aunt gave this to me or something. I think there is like an aspect of graciousness or like the cultural unawareness thing that Rachel was talking about, but I also don't think that they'd be culturally unaware forever, because I think that not just like as a neutral stance, these brands do have sort of a negative influence because it's associated with all sorts of like vanity, which we will get into later, but it's correlated with all these issues about modesty, about how you're trying to sort of measure yourself or give yourself worth based off of this thing that's very worthless, right? And that's what all these brands are trying to do and say that, oh, it's basically like the root of it is people trying to flex them. They're trying to say like, oh, this is like how rich I am based off of what I wear. And even if you're not rich and you just got it as a gift from your aunt, like wearing that kind of stuff puts you in a sort of crowd. And I know like Rachel and I talk a lot about with marketing our industry, but it's like if somebody can tell a certain thing from you just by looking at you and then be like, oh, I'm going to put you in this box because you behave in a certain way or wear a certain sort of thing. If that didn't happen to you, then as a Christian, I think you should try to avoid those things as best as you can. And that would include where you design your production costs a ton of money. Usually it's associated not like that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think in 2 Timothy, when Paul is saying how women should adorn themselves, part of that is no expensive dress. And he also lists gold and pearls, and that's because culturally women use those to make themselves look richer than other women. They would, decorate themselves so other women would be jealous. And Paul points out that that is not correct behavior for the church or for Christians. So if you're specifically like buying like a really expensive, shirt or sweatshirt or bag in order to be a part of that clique or to look richer than others. And that's definitely not the right heart posture for the Christian. And Paul specifically calls that out. And then if it's like, oh, I was gifted a Louis Vuitton bag or something, I still don't think I would wear it for the same reason that you said of like, culturally, someone on the street is going to think I bought it, right? And I don't want to give any sort of appearance of that is what I place my value in, or that is how I steward my finances and these faith things. But rather we want to set the example as Christians, we steward our finances in a way that glorifies the Lord and prioritizes the Lord, and any sort of, we have exactly what we need to get by, and there's no like need for any excess or things.
So do you think like the people with Louis Vuitton bags that they're kind of like all the Christians that are like holding their bags are like, what do I do now? I felt so convicted by the UF pie. What should they do with it? Because
Sell it, they're expensive.
imagine how much money. I think that's actually a legitimate option though. Like I think if you're not going to use it at all, and also it's unless like that's a whole other topic about it's like, oh, I know my singular aunt would love something like this. It's like, I know I'm not going to use it, so I'm going to like if it's here on a good basis, I don't know. That's a whole other topic. But I don't know. For the purpose of this topic, at least we'll say that I don't think as a Christian I would feel very comfortable when it comes to stuff.
I mean, 2 Timothy does say it's for women professing godliness. If little Aunt Susan isn't professing godliness, she's a vehement atheist.
Okay,
she can have my Gucci bag.
That's crazy.
It's for the ungodly.
I was told this was for those going to hell.
That's crazy. That's a wild statement. Oh no, good. She's there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to go back with that. We were mentioning about how like culture plays into this, about how culture defines sort of like what's acceptable and what's not in different areas, and that's true. But I've heard that used against sort of like any standards of Icebreaker because they're talking about like these like reign of tribes, like it's part of the tradition of like sort of things around basically naked, and everybody's cool with that. So then they're like, if modesty is up to the eye of the beholder, then why can't we just make it and have nobody judge us? And I think the only thing that's them keeping like most civilized countries are doing that is with conscience and people like saying like, oh yeah, dancing around naked is probably not very decent. But what is the basis? Is it actually dependent on culture, or is it absolute, or is there some in between?
I would say like there's kind of 2 aspects of why a Christian would dress modest. One being purity, of I'm specifically setting myself apart for either, the glory of God primarily, and then also, for future husband, wife, current husband or wife, specifically setting myself to be pure. And so in that aspect, I would say like, oh, there are certain things that you never show even culturally in Hawaii on that beach or whatever. And then there's also the aspect that we already talked about of humility, where that would be more like, if it's completely like no one will bat an eye in Hawaii if you wear like a really loud like patterned shirt, that, it's okay to wear that because culturally that's not something that people bat an eye at. So I would say there's like the 2 aspects of purity and
Yeah, I think it goes back to what Rachel was saying. The standard ultimately is God himself, right? God himself wrote out a lot of standards of who he is. He's been a covenantal God, and I think you want to talk about the nakedness part, right? Yeah, why can't you run around naked? Well, it's because, God is a true God, right? He doesn't condone acts of, disgusting acts like that, right? Yeah, sure, radio like the Hawaiian culture does, but does that make it right? Does culture define what is right and wrong? I don't think so, right? But the God who made the universe does. And I always think about, like Paul saying, weary in the wolf and not of the wolf, right? Yes, there are cultures, right? And we submit under authorities, right? But those are ultimately not the defining character of what is right and wrong. But we are in this context, right? It doesn't say a Christian is free from the context of this world and you can act however you want, right? But we are to submit under authority because God put the authorities there, right? So there's this balance of where truly the ultimate authority is God himself, and he has a lot of written out statements, but we have to live under these contexts.
Yeah, but it's not like your authorities are telling you to like, I don't know, strip down naked or something, or like telling you to wear this specific uniform, really. Like, I think a lot of people, or most of the situation I'm thinking at, they're given a lot of freedom. Like, there's people in Hawaii put on more clothes if they wanted to, but it's just that they don't have to. And the Jews would like kind of dress basically naked because that's what everybody else does. And it's just that in that culture, it's fun, whereas in America, it wouldn't. So you talking about like submitting to God and then also submitting to authorities. Yeah. But I feel like there's only submitting to God because the authorities aren't really telling you to do it.
That's true. That's true. I mean, the culture is kind of you can say the culture is an authority of some type, right? Because let's say you walk out there right now and you eat, right? You're going to get arrested for it. Big exposure. Yeah. So whether it be culture or not, if you don't get arrested, people are gonna look for you, right? So to a certain degree, like if we live in it, we're huge. We're always in a social context, right? There's always some kind of consequence for acting like out of line, right? Because God didn't make us to be, lone right? We were made to be groups, and you could make that argument that this is societal. Because I know a lot of people say like, oh, I don't like societal terms, and I don't like, that's just a society made up term, right? But to a certain degree, society makes up those terms because there's a consensus of how sort of things should, right? And we as humans have these like consciences, right? It doesn't just come out of nowhere. Like no one day came up with the idea that, oh, we should be waltzing around naked in a civilized society. They didn't need that. We have an innate desire to, or actually I say, it's just like social.
What are the first things out of it? The supposed to clothe themselves.
One of the there's no like it doesn't just come out of thin air. Like a lot of people say. Yeah.
So I think there's a bit of a conflict here. I heard sort of like you were basing it off of principles like the purity and what was the other aspect? Humility. Yeah, purity and humility. And then you kind of said at the beginning like, those people in Hawaii, they're gonna like sort of pay the consequences away. Which to me, correct me if I'm wrong, sort of sounds like you're saying like there are some societies with practices that are just like straight up wrong. Right. So I'm thinking to bring it to a more practical example. Wow, there's such a coincidence. The Japanese, they have like those onsens and like bathhouses, and it's a rule, like a cultural rule, that you are not supposed to go into the bathhouse without any clothes. And like that there are going to be other people in there because it's a public bathhouse, and like sometimes there's even extended ones. Yeah. So that is like actually a situation where culture or / like the authorities or I don't know, they have rules where they're saying like you have to go in it. Right. So what do we think about that? Is this another of those situations where it's like, yeah, we should obey our authorities and God, and that means in this cultural context it's okay, but in America would it be? Or is it like you should never get in front of naked in front of everybody ever, whether you're in Japan or not? Yeah. Interesting.
I think so. Personally, I would say that the bathhouse is a no-no. You abstain from that as a Christian. I would say again because Hebrews, God specifically calls out marriage is a sacred thing between with only two people's sets of eyes, and I think that purity aspect of it should be very important to the Christian. So even if it is culturally expected for you to break that, you should not, because you are called to be set apart. But yeah, what do we?
Yeah, no, I think I've heard people who would get used to it. They're just saying, oh, I'm just used to it, right? And so I think ultimately this is a wisdom thing. There's no, right? Because we go back to the heart, right? What does your heart desire? Right? If your heart is to show off your body, then yeah, let's not do that. But for me, I think my conviction would be, right, for now, I don't want to do it. Not going to do the co-ed ones, but if it's like all men, whatever, man, right? Who cares? Like, who cares with all men? Because I'm not like I'm not trying to show off my body with men. Like I'm just trying to take it back thing, right? So I think in my head that's actually okay because my heart isn't like yearning for any kind of attention there or to self-glorify. But co-ed definitely gets a little more dicey, so I wouldn't want to put myself in temptation.
Okay. So if you're a man walking into the bathhouse to show off his body, then that's wrong.
Yeah, well, if
I don't get the hand to the homies.
Yeah, to the boys, Sean's buying the boys. I mean, that I don't know who does that, but
you'd be surprised.
If someone does that, then yeah, I'd be like, wait a second, my guy, like, what are we trying to do here,
Okay, hot take, but I think, okay, so even in that scenario, like you're, all right, I'm not going to do co-ed. I do think that jealousy is, like, you don't want to put other men in the position of jealousy. I don't know how men's minds work, but I know that like
I don't think we work like that.
Okay.
Men are simple creatures. I know women struggle a little bit more with
So I would say like in a bathhouse for a woman, every single woman would be like, "Oh, why don't I look like her?" So
Oh my gosh,
don't worry about it.
No, I've heard that's more of a, like, men are just stupid, you know. We just kind of, we probably stack each other up, and we probably just.
We actually finished this analogy here.
We don't really care all that much.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
But I think there is like a part of it. I think I see that in like gym culture here. I mean, about like people kind of like go there and they kind of like they don't get naked in front of each other, but like sometimes the only reason why they go is they kind of like, oh, let's go in front of these. Sure. And so I was thinking about like, you know, we don't get naked in front of each other because we're not in pink, but like we still do like kind of show up at things, not really for the sport of it or because we enjoy it, but it's just serve. And it's not like a primary motive, you could say. Like people that go to the gym are like gym bros that are like, oh yeah, I'm like doing it to get gains and to be healthy and that kind of stuff. But there's always like a little part of, you know. So I thought it was interesting to bring that.
I know the gym is a really good example, actually. Like, especially modern gym culture has deteriorated to this, like, you know, like you said, it might not outright say that that's their intention, but we all have these hidden desires in our hearts, right? And it shows. And a lot of people go to the gym. People will call, I've talked to John White about it, people call it the meat market. The gym, yeah, they're not naked, but they're close to naked. Let's be honest. Like, come on, you just have like a thin piece of like, you're basically naked. And I've heard podcasts like what's the Costy Hin. Costy Hin says he does go to the gym. Like he did with whole gym because temptation is too strong there. So he just has a home gym. And his conviction is I'm not gonna go to the public film. There's no point. It's just putting myself in temptation. I can work out at home. I'm gonna work out at home. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk about, if we have time, we'll get to masculinity maybe a little bit later. I'd like to turn our attention a little bit back to modesty, if we can. I wanted to talk about sort of the common concern in Heidelberg, which is like, I'm sort of, it's along two lines. Doing it for like yourself, aka / for confidence. They're saying like, when I dress up and I wear something pretty, for the girls, and then for the guys, it's like, oh, I wear something sloppy that, because I think you can be a modest for being sloppy. Then they're like, oh, it's not really because I'm doing it for some other sort of person or for like, it's not for other people to look at me and think of me in a certain way. It's literally just because I want to do so, because it makes me feel confident or makes me feel comfortable or something like that. So what do you think about this idea of like dressing for yourself? Is it real? How legitimate is that?
I mean, it's two different heart issues and both are sinful. One is fear of man and one is pride. As a Christian, I don't want to do anything for myself. I think that should be our desire should be to do all things for God, whether we eat or we drink. Eating and drinking is even more basic than getting dressed, right? So I think you should wear nothing because they're like, oh, this makes me feel good. It makes me feel confident. I'm not dressing for anyone else but me. Then you're living in sin.
I think dressing up, I used to be super sloppy as a kid. I'm wearing freaking neon green sweatpants right now. I used to dress super homeless. And I think part of growing up is realizing that I do need to part of being a good steward of my body, of who I am, and that God has given to me, is to at least look presentable enough that I don't look like a slob, right? And there's a level of taking care of yourself that comes in because you respect God and you love Him for the life that He's given you, right? You want to use it the best you can. And so I think I come from the other side of the spectrum where I didn't care at all. I realized how bad I am at caring for my own body as an adult, because I'm like, oh shoot, I have these things I don't take care of. Like now my body has this reaction and whatever, right? They're realizing I have to do a little bit more to take care of this temple, because ultimately the body is a temple of God, right? So yeah.
So there's two sort of sides here, and the big question is we're thinking around it. Yeah. It's really easy to say oh, I'm gonna do this for God, and then especially if it's relating to yourself and taking care of yourself, that very quickly turns into this sort of self.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of love. So, do you have any methods, any questions that you ask yourself when you're analyzing what am I gonna use for? That's how to you.
I think first off is as I continue to dress a little better, I did find myself like looking at, oh yeah, and then oh shoot. And then I realized like I look at myself a lot in the mirror and I'm like, bro, what am I doing? Right? Am I like I'm dressing up for church? And in my head I'm like, oh dude, this looks nice. And I'm just like, why am I basically like getting ready for church, but then worshiping myself? That was kind of a thought that came into my mind one morning. And I was like, oh, heart check. Like, what am I dressing up for? I'm dressing. I mean, granted, I don't even dress up like that nice for church, let's be real, but like, you know, big stuff for me, right?
I see Paul in sweatshirts.
Well, there's such a wrong time, right? But for me, it's like, I definitely dress more streetwear, but it's like, even that, it's like, I gotta check myself, hey, you know, if you're going to church today, if you're going anywhere, let's not walk into the room and just have my mind fixated on, oh, I went to growth this morning in the mirror, right? What am I coming here for? This is the house of God, not a house for me to be glorified.
Yeah. I think, like, again, in 2 Timothy, one of the characteristics Paul lists for how a woman should be dressed is with self-control. So if there's, like, I don't want to say that. That might be embarrassing.
You can say it.
No. But I think, like, so for me personally, like, I really love makeup. Like, I know we'll talk about this later and I'm spoiling things. But I really love makeup. But, like, I was convicted that actually during a conversation on Modesty that we had, but that makeup might not be the most profitable, right? It might not be, like, the most loving. And so, you know, I still have my career in doing, like, bridal makeup or whatever, but that I don't personally really wear it anymore. And I think that's part of the self-control aspect of, like, this morning I was like, oh, I want to just, like, put on, like, a little something. And I was like, no, it's self-control and, like, you know, it's denying your flesh of, like, what you might want to do for the sake of, these are the characteristics that God specifically calls out as holy, so I will pursue those. We don't look at the Bible saying, oh, what can I get away with? But we look at the Bible saying, what does God specifically call out as holy, and how do I pursue that?
Yeah. I think one method I would sort of think about is like, it's not really, I think I'm more clear with myself or more honest with myself when I'm thinking about what I get accept over rather than who I praise. To do something like, oh, I'm praising God, then I might be praising myself a little bit in it. So if I'm like staring at myself in the mirror in the morning and like I got my hair like done up and then like wearing my nice vest or something, then I think of myself like, okay, if like some bird like smashed through my window and then like flew into my hair and then sort of like ruined everything and then ripped up my vest, then like what would I do and what would I be upset about? And why would I be upset about it? Because
your house.
and she flew out. I guess you could instead of rip my cigarette or whatever. But then I was like, it's either you're like upset because you're sort of gonna like leave a bad impression on people that you're going out to. You thought it was like a really important occasion, and you're sort of like, oh, like now it's all gonna be screwed up, and you think of me in a certain way. Then that's an indication to me that you're sort of acting out of pride. But if it's more about like a sort of like there's a lot of things that go into it. Depends on like what sort of event that you're going to, and what you're really trying to achieve with your dress. Because there's certain occasions, obviously, a funeral versus like a recruiting fair or something like that. But if I examine myself and my upsetness is fully centered upon God, and it's sort of saying like, oh, I wouldn't be able to serve in this capacity if I don't have myself presentable or appropriate for this occasion, then I think my prayers are more in the right place. So that's what I think now when I'm sort of like determining whether I'm doing this for God or not, and taking care of myself. And I think that applies to a lot of other areas too. But I'd like to move on to like sort of application part of this. You know, like there's a lot of those principles that we've talked about, and I think all of us sort of had an intuitive understanding of them. I guess how do we apply in our own lives, or also like when we see somebody that's sort of like, I don't know, wearing a white beater in church, then how do you go about doing anything about it? Or should
I see. It depends on the person of the white beater, my relationship with them. And like, if I don't know where his church is truly this, like Christ said, he came to the sinners, so he gave it the sick, not healthy. And if someone comes in that I don't know wearing a white beater, honestly, well, let's try to get to know him, see where he's at, right? And maybe he needs a lot of help, right? Or maybe he doesn't, I don't know. It depends on where they're at. But if one of my friends, let's just give an example, who came in, if Keo walks in with a white beater with like alcohol stains on it, I'd be like, bro, what are you doing? Wearing passion. Because I have a relationship with him. I know that will be like where he's usually at, and I know something would be odd and be walking with a white beater. And so yeah, I think it really depends on how well you know the person and how well you can like evaluate if that's immodest or modest for them. It's hard. I would say don't go about. It's not our job to go to policing and judging whether someone's modest or not. And the idea of a good relationship with them, they may do well speaking in their lives a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be like you have to be confident they're a believer, right? Because then if they're, they just walk into church and the first thing they hear is like, whoa, like, what are you wearing, bro? I think like, obviously there should be a graciousness when approaching someone who you believe to be in sin. I think you should approach them any other way you would approach someone in any other sin. I think like, I've actually wondered this quite a lot because I think, modesty is obviously very vocalized, like especially with women. And so I'm like, oh, how do I talk with my friends about this? I did it sort of in like like the epic, we do the devotion for the retreat. I was like, everyone's
You what?
So for the retreat at Epic, they like split off girls and guys, and like they have like the guys, like one of the students lead a devotional for them, like the girls lead a devotional for them. Like a lot of mine I did on Modesty, just because I think it was a little like cowardice of like I don't want to talk to anyone one-on-one, so I'm just gonna talk about this principle like general. But that's one way to go about it. But yeah, I think it would be the same way that you would approach any other sin. Matthew gives a good outline.
This is like very general in terms of like, it's not like the most important issue, so obviously it's not like something to jump out and grab it by the neck and say, hey, you actually
get out of here.
So I think there's definitely an aspect of a relationship people there, but there's like sort of an aspect of boldness that maybe has to be there as well, since we see it so often. And it's not like, I think if you're like strong in your faith and you like generally tell like whether somebody is, it's like usually like sometimes there's some gray lines, but if it's the point that you would say something, it's usually very all-peace. So I think there is a lot of like sort of boldness that it goes with like the people that that building relationships and that sort of stuff. That is to be done in this area, I think. Especially like, I don't know how relevant it is like for your people, but I think in our generation, like especially we're at school, we have a lot of friends that are sort of going through your rebellious. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I would say though, like if they're not a Christian, I would say it's not an important thing to bring up. If you get them to dress modestly, they're still going to hell. So like, I would say it's not necessary at all. I think it might even impede the effectiveness of your witness, and this is what you think is the most important thing to talk about.
Yeah. My mom actually told me an example of this because in Taiwan, some lady started going to her church who was dressed a little bit more immodestly, like pretty immodest. And so my mom just started building a relationship with her, and she like proclaimed Christian too. So my mom was like, what the heck, right? She told me that. She's like, what the but then she didn't immediately start by saying like, hey, you need to go change and look more modest at church. Obviously people reflected to her because my mom's pastor's wife, right? He's like, this lady. Mom's like, okay, I get it, right? So she started like trekking in on her, building a relationship, bringing her to Bible study, like asking her to come study with them. And over time, like the lady who was dressing a little more modest, like starts trusting my mom a lot more. They had better conversations. And later, my mom had she like reached out, or she had the boldness to study to say, hey, maybe as Christians we shouldn't be dressed like this because this is not how God has called us to live. And the lady at that point was more willing to take what my mom was saying than she was as well. So I think, yeah, there's a relationship built, and that's just like, it just came to mind right now. Oh, that's an example of how to approach someone through the...
Yeah, praise God.
And I think like, I think like there's a lot of like different heart postures behind why someone would dress immodestly too. So I think getting to build that relationship, even just as someone gets sanctified, their desire for modesty, or even just like their fear of man would decrease, or their their pride decreases. So things like that, of like, even just for myself, like I can look at when I was a younger Christian, I'm still a fairly new Christian, but I can look back and see like I did dress more immodestly because I just wasn't as sanctified. 25, right? So getting to build a relationship with someone like your mom did, I think is really great because I think there's a lot of different card postures behind immodesty that would be what you want to attack. Because even if you do get like a Christian to dress modestly, praise God, that's amazing, but they still might have this fear of man or this, desire to look pleasing in others' eyes or to have attention for themselves, right? No.
I wanted to move on to another topic that you mentioned earlier that I was going to get to, and I was going to get to, which is makeup. The fellas will not know very much about this. Because, yeah, I can name like 3 products. But I know Rachel knows a lot about it, and I guess the one question that I would like to start off with is like, do you think makeup has done more of a universal good or evil since its creation?
So evil. So evil. I'm almost done with my...
Aren't you a fashion major?
I'm literally a makeup artistry major. I'm almost done with my certificate. I have like a month left. Like, it's so evil.
What are we doing out here?
That's crazy. Well, can you enlighten us?
Okay, so I think like in our culture specifically, it plays a lot into the feminization of men, which I know we'll talk about later, but I think it's kind of started with TV and movies of, men can wear makeup to, look nicer on camera, sure. And then it played more into, men can wear makeup to look nicer, day to day, which, is fine if you're not effeminate. And then it played into, men can wear makeup if they want to look like a woman. That's fun. And I think, like, without makeup's influence, like, if makeup didn't exist, I think, like, trans people the number would be so much lower because it would be so much harder to costume yourself as someone else. But, okay, that's a rabbit trail. But I also think it's evil for the woman because almost every single woman I know that wears makeup will not leave the house without makeup. And it becomes such a, like, big aspect for someone to have fear of men. Even if you're like very classically beautiful, if you get used to looking at yourself as, more in harmony with whatever culture standards are, that you begin to like hate your natural face more and more. And I had this too, like when I used to wear a lot of makeup of like, I wouldn't really want to leave the house without wearing makeup because you just get used to looking at yourself like that. And it becomes such an idol of like, I can't go to the grocery store right now. I gotta like put something on real fast or things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that is not something I would ever thought. It's like,
What do you mean?
okay, to give a guy example from fellas, it's like if you have a special t-shirt and then you can't go outside of the house without like putting on the special t-shirt.
I think maybe like a haircut would be
Haircut.
Yeah. Or like I can't leave my house with my hair.
It's not. They do say a haircut is a man's makeup. You've heard that, right?
Yeah.
I've experienced that. Sometimes I'm like, oh shoot, I look kind of shocked right now. It's kind of maybe like I need to like put some primer in. Or it's just like I spend so much time looking at my hair, doing my hair. I just like pull it out like my phone screen, look at my hair. I'm like, wait, what am I doing? I think that's the closest thing we can get to.
No, that's true.
Or like chains and stuff, or just like accessories.
Jewelry, I think though, same applies for women. I think that's also
No, it's interesting because I grew up in the land. We call it the land of the ADGs. So, yeah. We got the thick brows, like the thick lashes. Like every single girl out there on the street just randomly has like them thick thick lashes. And like a lot of mascara, a lot of eyeliner, like the cat eyeliner.
Wow.
I do that like every day.
Yeah. You know what? You did that every day.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Do you not remember what my face looked like?
No,
I
can talk to you. Yeah. No. Oh no. I didn't. I mean, I could see it now that you're saying like it affects women so much, but yeah, like you said, the fellas wouldn't think about it. That kind of
Fellas would think about it. Okay, what do you think though? Evil or good?
Me?
And to what degree?
Disregard everything that
I think there's good to it, where it's like if you can make something special, like a day, you're going out with someone, like they make that day special by putting some on, right? And it's like, okay, I put effort in, right? But then obviously the temptation is huge, right? Because some people put makeup and they look really nice, right? And so I think there's a benefit to it, but the temptation, obviously, like, everything is lawful, but not all is, beneficial, right? If you go overboard, then yeah, you think it was a huge nag on your soul, where you just have to have that thing. And whenever you need to have something, it's everything.
Yeah. I think about it, I'm actually like pretty extreme about with this ball. I think in terms of like the relative good and bad that you can have, like it's true that there's good aspects of it that we can like use, but I'm thinking like it all goes back to like what are you doing it for, to like preschool. And like the world looks at the inner man, not the outer man. And so like no matter how much makeup, I'm not going to talk about like man because that's weird. How much a woman puts on her face doesn't change the position before God. And God will not care about how beautiful she looks because he's the one that created. And then the only reason that you could think about like, okay, that's like, we kind of established with modesty thing that there's no such thing as like putting on makeup for yourself or else that's sin. So it's like the good aspect of it also comes from like dressing up for other people. Like you put in effort so that other people will know that you put in other effort, like through like putting on makeup and stuff like that. And that's like, I guess you could say that's good, but there's other methods that you could use to like show effort, I guess like in consideration or stuff. And then it's like, also it's usually not the core element because it's like, people would say, oh, if like this person is just unknowingly really bad at makeup and they kind of like screw up their face, then you wouldn't commend them in the same way as saying like, oh, I don't really care because it's about the effort. You know, you say like, no, you screwed up your face.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
I mean, okay. I do very much agree with what you said, but I think there is also like a certain beauty of like if a woman specifically wants to like, if she's married and wants to like please her husband, right? I'm like, we're going out on a fancy date and I want to like look fancy for my husband because, you know, my body is my husband's. I want to look nice for him. I think like that aspect is great. That's why I'm going into bridal makeup and no other form of makeup.
And you see Bola's makeup on her wedding day?
No, she looks so pretty. She looked absolutely gorgeous. You could barely tell
otherwise
she was
she's in
wearing makeup.
sweatpants, you know?
Yeah. I know she got sweatpants under that ball. But yeah, there is like that great aspect of like, oh, I want to specifically put this effort into he's my husband. Sure, that's great. But I think like makeup as a whole, I would rather it not exist and not have that benefit than like it does exist and it has all the evil that it does have. Yeah. And like that with little benefit.
That's what I was like going about. It was like just the relative good that it comes from like versus the relative evil. It's just so disproportionate. I can with a lot of it's fair. I want to like put on a perspective of sort of like it's like drugs, but you don't even have to get into it in order for you to begin it. It's just that like everybody sort of treats it it's like if we, well, I mean, in Logic did it is legal. It's like if weed was legal and everybody did it. Well, a lot of people did it, and the only reason why some people didn't do it is just because of their preference. It's like if you go on any sort of social media and there's like these people posting stuff, then they have like a certain sort of image. And I know this like maybe it's not as extreme like our rules, but there are like young girls that are like looking at like these icons, and that's like,
oh, you're sure. So yeah, you've heard about like the 10-year-old girls putting on makeup.
No, I worked at a Sephora for a little bit, and well, actually, I worked at a Kohl's, and there was a Sephora in the pool, so I would be there. But whatever. Yeah, there would be like 10-year-old girls buying makeup, and I'm like, your face doesn't have blemishes. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, it like. Again, it's just that societal evil of like, as women, we're like, oh, this is our right. Like, I turned 12 and like, it's makeup time. Like, yeah.
No, Lisa. Yeah. So just like the pervasiveness of it and also like the societal treatment of it is something that's like a morally neutral sort of thing. I think makes it all the more sort of harmful in the sense that like people are sort of pressured to do it, even if like nobody forced it, or like they weren't even sort of like really into it. It's kind of just like something that they will either have to get into or they'll always go bad about it. It's like, oh, I'm not as pretty as a Rupert.
I think, okay, so my perspective when I used to do my makeup was I was like, wow, this is like such a, there was that aspect of like, oh, I got used to my face look like out blemishes or whatever. But I think the biggest aspect of it for me was like, oh, I do it for myself. Like I genuinely just liked the art of it. Like I liked the science behind it. Like, oh, you can't mix these products because then they separate or whatever. Like I just liked makeup. That's why I went to school for it. But I think like what was convicting to me is there's a lack of considering other people other than myself in that scenario. So it's, I think, because you said something, you were like, you just said like makeup doesn't help either. And I was like, no. But yeah, I'm just like, there's a lack of consideration for other people when you are doing something for yourself.
I remember Daniel, like, our youth pastor, said something along the lines of like, there's like,
oh yeah,
there's like no such thing as doing it for yourself. or doing it
Hearing
for
his voice.
doing it for yourself.
Doing it for yourself.
Don't trust it.
That is his.
He's gonna find.
He's gonna find us somewhere.
We love you, Daniel. Now, like moving on to some more thoughts. I know you've been silent for quite a while. You're probably bursting. Let's talk about manliness a bit, and exactly what are the sort of charms, allures, deceptions when it comes to our culture telling young men what it's like to be more manly. What do you think the most prominent ones have played?
For modern day, yeah, for manliness, honestly, I'd say in modern days demon the man. That's probably more so like what the trend is.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
Be like less of a man or be more of a man?
No, they're just trying to like basically biblical masculinity is not the definition of what a man looks like nowadays. Whatever society is making us to be is simply not biblical. I think I'll give you an example, right? We'll try to think of what I was back then, what I am still now, struggling with. I think being a man now, they're just saying like, I'm trying to think of the context of it, because there's no specific like telling men what to do. It's more so I think men are more reactive nowadays. I don't know if you felt that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's more so like, oh, I did this crap, I got a reaction. Let's not do that, right? I said this to a girl. Oh, they reacted negatively. Oh, they actually say that kind of stuff, right? So more so that I think men are being less like there's a push to be more nonchalant, be chill. That things, yeah, like I don't care. So like for me, a big struggle for me growing up, and still like I see it affecting me today, is if I can care less the cooler I am, right? And if I can invest less into this relationship and they care more, great, that's great for me, right? It's a good look for me, right? I want to be someone who is on the receiving end rather than giving.
Yeah.
And it makes men a lot more selfish because I'm very self-defensive, right? I'll do things for my benefit, but if I perceive that I will have to give more or lose more, then I will do.
Yeah. It's sort of like, it's not as extreme, but I think it goes into sort of like the Playboy idea that was even before our generations, about how like these men that were like super selfish, but the idea of it is just that like, oh, the colder he is, the more unloving he is to all of his partners, the more he just like uses women as like tools or primary mothering, then the more attractive he is, the more masculine and like macho he is. He has that to exert his power in deserved ways. And I think it is coming back to like our modern light, in sort of like the nonchalant sort of way that you were talking about. I think that is like in perspective like Riz. Yeah. It's funny. You know how like people on like Instagram or something were doing like this challenge about like nonchalantly getting into an elevator?
Oh, yeah. See it, yeah.
So I think like it's true that it's coming back, not to that extent because everybody like, oh yeah, the Playboy era was so terrible with all these like guys doing whatever they want, but then they also don't recognize the root issue of it, which is about like this selfish relationship sort of thing about you wanting to be so cool and nonchalant and not care about anybody else, be like the center of attention, while real meaningful relationships are established through like a two-way street, you guys pouring into each other.
Yeah.
I think like even more so like a biblical relationship with a biblical man is, you know, I hate to break it to you guys, but you guys are the pursuer. Like that's the biblical outline that God sets for us. So for society to go to the other extreme, like, oh, I'll just like lay back and, you know, if the other person is pursuing, then that's great for me, is, you know, kind of the completely sliding away from what God has ordained as his holy word.
You guys, I don't know. You guys heard of the thing situationship, right? This is why our generation struggles so much in situationship, because men and women both we've been conformed to not biblical roles, right? But because I'll just speak from the man side, right? Because we're so non-committal and so wary of like, you know, like dancing around, right? That's why situations happen, because it's like so unclear, right? For both sides. Yeah.
Because there's no leader, right?
Yeah, it's just like, oh, let's see where this goes, but also I'm gonna pull out whenever. Like I'm ready to dip when it goes bad, right?
So, like non-committal, I'm hearing is like a really big part of the thing that's being twisted, and like what twists masculinity now. I want to talk a bit about like, you know, David Goggins.
Sounds familiar.
He's like this
The disciplined guy.
The disciplined dude is like bald and he like swears a lot and he's like, oh, push yourself, pick up at 6 a.m. Do ice time or something. So
It's a manly man right there.
I think it's a difficult topic. I actually have a cousin that was really into Andrew Tate.
I was just gonna bring up Red Pill.
Yeah, you know Andrew Tate, but like I was asking like, what's your obsession with him? Because it's like I know that he's not a very good guy,
Right.
And he's like, oh, I don't like pay attention to like all of his like Playboy verse stuff. Like I care about he like tells guys to like get their life in shape and to go to the gym and to be like better. And he's not Irish, so like, but he's moved by this sort of stuff. And then I'd like to ask, like, do you think what aspects of this sort of like I've heard it like monk mode, it's called, or to get into monk mode and fix yourself. What aspects of that are good or bad, if there is an ego, or is it all bad?
Let's just show you a good part. I think discipline's a really good part. It's biblical too, right? Because Paul says like you discipline your body, you feed it to submission, right? For godliness, right? It's in the Bible. So I'm gonna start by giving them the benefit of the doubt. There is good, and what your cousin is saying, right? The discipline, going to the gym. No, that's great. Take care of your body. Get in shape and do right things, right? Because Christian men, like Jesus never said, there's no men. He never said like thou shalt live an easy life, right? He never said if you take up your cross and follow me, you will have an easy. No, it's you will have suffering, you will have trouble. But take heart, because I don't come, right?
Yeah.
So Christians are gonna have tough things in life, right? So I think we Christian men need to do hard things, and I need to be doing hard things because this society is just lazy and seek comfort. It's so easy to just like chill, and we have sedentary lives, sit around, right? We don't do hard things anymore. So when hard things come, I run to my comforts, right? And I can see that in my own life, and I'm like, that's how that.
Good evening, the Bellevue Library.
So what was I saying? The good part. Let's grab the bad part. I think the reason why men are running to like Andrew Tate and Red Pill now is because there is no like the whipping part is so confusing, right? Because men when dealing with women, right? I've heard the Red Pill stuff is because it's like, oh, we're done with the women and we're just gonna go our own way, right? Like who needs a woman? Like that's what's in monk mode, right? Because men go their own way, and we are satisfied with like hard work and self-bettering, and I don't need no woman to play with my feelings. And then it goes into like indicates like, oh, there's objects, right? And so that sounds a lot better than being manipulated by women, because society right now is how best up, right? We're like with the situationship, so I could see why it's appealing to young men, but that's also because it's a lack of God, right? And that they're turning to something because they don't know God, who made the dynamics between men and women. And for us, it's like we had the one who wrote the blueprint for life. He's the one who made this relationship, who made marriage, right? And who made it to be good. But then if they don't know God, then obviously they're going to turn to amputate, because it also plays into like the self-preservation, right? It's like, oh, if I don't deal with the women with the mess that they bring, and I just focus on myself, life is so much easier, right? I could just like succeed on my own. I can have these goals I hit, and life is satisfying and fulfilling. Yeah, that's kind of my view on Red Pill.
Do you have anything to say, Rachel?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that the discipline would definitely be a benefit of this like whole trend. But again, is it really good to have discipline without the purpose of godliness? Because the verse is, discipline yourself for the purpose of godliness. So, if you have a bunch of practices, if you can follow a schedule really well, I fear you're still going to hell. I think like disciplining yourself, like when you work out, you do this, I'm denying my flesh purposefully for the aspect that I will be able to deny my flesh in other scenarios of my life more easier. I'm building up that mind muscle as I work out to deny my flesh for the sake of godliness, of walking in holiness. Yeah, I think the whole like, macho man, like, my life is lifting weights and working out, there still is that, physical training is of some benefit that's biblical, but obviously it's not the most benefit. Again, beauty is vain, right? If you work out for the purpose of aesthetics, That's vain. I fear you will in fact age, or you will in fact die and vomit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the discipline part is great, but discipline without godliness is still
Yeah. I was gonna note actually about sort of even if you're just doing it by yourself. That's actually going to go to my next question about like I know there's a lot of younger Christian guys that are going to the gym right now, but they're not sort of like I was like thinking about it from a different perspective. They're kind of like, how do I connect me going to the gym to praising God? Like that's such a huge jump. And like I kind of like know that going to the gym, maybe they started going gymming and building like a good habit before they became Christian or before they came to such knowledge of like their entire life should be devoted to God. And so like growing in their Christianity is so like how do I do this jump? And like I haven't really resolved that yet. Do you think it's necessarily a bad thing to go to the gym just to like I don't know about the good habit, even if it's not God centered, you say that they go to the gym and they want to like build themselves up because like generally it's a good thing just to be healthy and to live a little longer, and then maybe it'll have some implications for like your ministry life, but it's just like you're not doing it necessarily for those reasons. It's just like a generally good thing that you've built a habit of doing, and everybody else says it's a pretty good.
That's a pretty good question. Actually, very relevant to me because recently I set a goal to wake up at 6 to go to the gym because I realized for me I haven't been able to get into the Word of God well. And then, like for the day, and I drag myself through the work day and I'm tired the whole time. So I realized, maybe I should get some physical discipline because it plays our body, spirit, and mind they work in tandem, right? So I think after going and setting this goal, waking up, working out, honestly, able to read the Bible a lot better, and my quiet time is so much better because my mind is clear and I'm able to give it all to God. And then going to work, I'm able to work a lot better as an unto Him rather than being like, oh, I hate this, my body hurts, my mind is foggy, right? And so I think if you come at a point where you come at going to the gym, like you start setting a habit, that's good. I think that for any man, there's going to be benefit. Like I wouldn't, maybe even if their goal is it to, grow spiritually, I would say, no, that's good, right? It's go in a direction, at least go in support.
Yeah.
You have some direction in place, but even better, when you realize this body God gave you, what a privilege it is to work out. Like playing volleyball, for me, last Sunday, I was able to close out in prayer for the game, right? Because we usually do that for CSL. And my prayer is always, Lord, remind us that every time we play volleyball, it is a gift from you that we can play this competitive sport and enjoy this with one another, right? So let us not just play just to play it, but give things every time we're able to touch the ball.
Yeah.
So kind of like that. I hope the guys working out can go in that direction, or when they lift, they're like, oh, praise God that my body's able to do this. I can enjoy this. I can enjoy taking care of my body, making it better. Like there's a thank you for this direction and this goal that I can set for it because you gave me all this.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think, obviously it's a habit that just scientifically will make you healthier, and that's great that, you're stewarding what God has given you well. But I think without like a godly mindset behind it, it is ultimately vanity. Like as we, see in Ecclesiastes, he lists these wonderful, beautiful God-given gifts, and he says without God, they are vanity. It's no benefit to you. But if it's like a non-Christian going to the gym, there's no eternal benefit for it. So I think the professing Christian should be checking themselves of, oh, why do I work out? I do think that the professing Christian who does not work out should also check themselves, because I think that is also a sinful attitude of not stewarding your body well. But you check yourself of why do I do these things? And I think as a Christian, it's very important to ask the why behind pretty much everything that you do.
I think that's a really more question to ask for all this dumb men that are going to the gym, especially if they proclaim to be Christian. Is like tell me the young men that are like going to the gym. If you're like going at the bench and you're like doing your routine or something, ask yourself the question, is my reason for being here and doing what I'm doing fundamentally different from the guy next to me? Or am I doing it for the same sort of reasons? If I asked him, hey, why are you working out? Then he would give me the exact same answers I would give somebody else. And I think if that's the case, then there's something to be said. I don't want you to compare yourself like with a playboy, with a dude that obviously is working out to like flex in front of other people. Like compare yourself to somebody normal, like your friends. And if there isn't, then a very stark difference between like I'm doing this for these specific purposes, and instead you're doing it just because of like physical strength or because of discipline. I think I agree with you in terms of like those are good things, and I would encourage them to continue doing them. But I think there's also something that happens in the male life where like the stronger we get, the more inflated we are. He is like big monkey. It's like I'm able to
Big monkey. Projects humanity.
big monkey, like small monkey. That means big monkey better. But I literally have some friends that like they have expressed to me in sort of a similar manner. It's like, oh, it's okay that they're able to do this better than me because I know I could beat them up.
Yeah, you said it. No, it is definitely male ego. You gotta have something that you can one up someone on.
So it's not a bad thing. I definitely think that people should continue going to the gym. But I think that question is really essential about like whether you're self-examining yourself and whether your reason for gymming is fundamentally different from somebody who doesn't have the same goal and their lives as you. Yeah. And closing thoughts that we have about anything that we talked about today.
I was gonna say let's wrap it up with like the gym. Wrap it up with modesty, right? Like always examining the heart. Like you said, go to the gym. You got to remember, right? Why we go to the gym, and ultimately, it's like gave you all this, right? Why are you able to go to the gym? Tomorrow, you could get hit by a car. You won't be able to go to the gym, right? So today, you owe it all to God, right? And say with modesty, it's like your dress, your body, everything.
Good evening. All areas of the library will close in 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Just do it. 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Turn off automatically at closing.
No, that's not 10 minutes. That's not even half. You're gonna talk for 30 seconds. Oh, okay.
Buenas noches.
Oh,
Give us
Let her cook.
patience.
Yes. It sounds like the AI that goes through the paint journals.
Se apagarán automáticamente al cerrar. Si desea obtener una tarjeta de la biblioteca o tiene artículos para sacar prestados, por favor diríjase al ilustrador en el
It's gonna be Chinese.
She just goes all the way.
Chinese here.
Yeah. Okay, what was I saying? Yeah, it actually ties back to modesty, right? Because who's the one who gave you all this? Who gave you the dress? Who gave you the body? Who gave you all this that you can be you today? God, right? Yeah, and he's the one you can give the takeaway. So wherever you do, right, goes back to eating, drinking for the glory of God. Wherever you dress, wherever you work out, what sports you play, all for the glory of God, because he's the one who gave it to you, and you owe it all.
Yeah, I just want to circle back to something that you mentioned very briefly, but just the idea of not marring your testimony. I was talking to one of just like the older woman at church, and she was talking about how she became a Christian when she was 17 because of her friend's witness. And it was during like the 1960s when the whole like sexual revolution was happening, and her friend never compromised on it. And
You just dated her.
okay, well, I didn't say her name, but yeah, just like her friend never compromised in any area of her dress, and that was such a big testimony to her of her like the weight and emphasis that she put on virtue and modesty and humility was bigger than the culture's emphasis. So I think like the idea of not borrowing your testimony as a Christian should always be in your mind for everything that you do, for your speech, for your dress, for the jokes that you make, how you present yourselves. We're called to be reverent in behavior.
Yeah. I was gonna say one final thing about like something along the lines that you said. Like these issues that we're talking about are very first world. Like the medieval peasants in like the 14th century were not carrying.
We got more than cured potato salad.
Like how they're blushing up their face every morning, going to the gym. Like they were farmers.
They don't even have toilets back then.
Yeah, they went to do their business out in the field, and they're like, "That's fertilizer." So I think it is more of like a testament, sort of like we do have a responsibility to recognize the complexity of the situation you have in front of us, and that like. And it's also like to back down to the roots. It's also very simple and sort of like, okay, you don't even have to like worry about these issues if God didn't give you a body to work out with at the time to work out. If He didn't give you the financial resources to buy makeup because I know it's very expensive, or the money to even like have multiple outfits. Like the medieval peasants like wore the same thing, right? yeah, just like go out of the field with my whatever I'm wearing because that's the only thing I could buy. So there's a higher responsibility, I think, to take these issues in the century that we are in those lights and think about them with more complexity because we are given a lot of gifts. There's an aspect, I think, of all of these sort of things like makeup you talked about or going to the gym about like dressing up for certain occasions. There's good in them, but I think the reason why it's important to talk about is there's very great evil in the light of like how people can use it, secular people in our context, which is like all the more responsibility for us to understand the complexities of our age so that we can use these good things to their fullest extent to glorify God. So yeah, on that out, that'll conclude our episode for today. If you have any questions for us, DM me over Discord. If you want to be on the podcast, DM me. And I hope this was relevant to you, something that you can apply to your own lives. We do try to make it more for like this century topics. We are not medieval peasants anymore, and we shouldn't live like medieval peasants. So we hope you'll join us back in the emergency room for episode 3.
Yay!
Good job, guys.